Okay, I'm Amy Murphy. I'm in the Career Center. I hope all you guys know we have a Career Center, right? So we're really trying to bump up what we're doing over there, working a lot, trying to develop employer contacts and jobs. And so I'm just doing a pitch for the Career Center right here. And one thing that Rob and I, who is our entrepreneur in residence, are very excited about is trying to give you the opportunity to learn more about careers and career paths and how people got there. And we have this great group of NCC alums and also NCC professionals who have agreed to talk about where they got to where they are, and they're all very successful, and to just give us some insights into their fields, but more importantly, the paths that they took from the time they were 20 to where we are right now, because none of us are near 20 up here. So I'd just like to really quickly have the panelists.
We're not?
Not even close. Not even close. Just kind of introduce themselves. And first we have TJ, the best dressed man at NCC. Sorry, Rob. So we'll just have TJ give you a little bit of his background.
I think the best dressed man at NCC is President Livingston. Every time I see him.
Sorry, David.
I would second that. That's true.
And you don't have the accent that helps, so.
Well, good morning and welcome to the panel. So I'm very happy to be here, and this is NCC that I call my home, second, third home, because I have three homes: my home, and Woodway Country Club and NCC, because I spend most of my time in those three places. So I'm very happy to be here to share my experience with you. And just to introduce myself, I'm from Senegal, West Africa. That's why you see the accent. And I've been in the hospitality business for about 30 years. And I work in Senegal at the American Embassy, made my way up. Then I came here in '98. And when I came here, the first place I went was NCC. Start going to school here, then afterward transfer at Canisius College. I get a full scholarship, and when I finished a scholarship, when I graduated from Canisius, I've got a job at Woodway Country Club, and I've been there since. And I've been the beach club manager at Woodway Beach Club, and also been very active on the Connecticut Club Managers Association, and just outgoing president of the Connecticut Club Managers Association. And on the national level, Club Managers Association of America, I sit on the couple committees there too. So
a true underachiever. And,
exactly.
And then we have Lorraine Gordon, who is also an NCC alum. And if Lorraine, you want to bring us up to speed what you're doing now?
Well, what I'm currently doing is I own a franchise, a Nutrimos franchise, and I'm also the financial manager of my husband's chiropractic business. It's a busy time for me. I just graduated NCC in August, thought I'd be transferring to a 4-year school. Actually came back in the fall to take a few more courses to maximize my transfer credits, because I love NCC. You guys have tremendous opportunity here, and I hope you all realize that there are things here to help you meet your goals. I cannot believe how much support I had in my time here. Coming back to school as an adult was an amazing process for me. So good luck to everybody, and if you can learn anything from your life, I would say if there's a door open, at least take a peek. Give it a try, because everything you try on, you don't know if it's going to fit until you actually try. So be a participant in your life. You really never know where it's going to take you.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Great.
Our next panelist is Guy Fort, who has a very deep resume in a lot of different fields. Guy?
Yes.
Also NCC alum.
Yes, hello everybody, good morning. Where do I start? I came here in NCC not having an idea where I was going to go and or what I was going to do. And this institution helped define who I am today and where I come from and what I've done. I was a 26-year career firefighter. I retired from the fire department, but always while I was at the fire department, I had the opportunity to also have a second career, which was in the entertainment field. So while I was out saving lives and helping citizens of the town of Greenwich. I also was on Broadway in The Color Purple. I played Officer Fing in Law and Order. I've just done a lot of beautiful commercials and everything. It's been a beautiful journey. Secondly, I'm currently right now in my, I graduated in June from Columbia University. So I went from NCC to the University of Bridgeport, going to Columbia University, and I'm finishing up in my master's degree in sports management at Columbia University. So education to me is now very, it wasn't in high school. I got to tell you that, guys. You know what I mean? Back then it wasn't at all, but now it's very valuable, and the opportunities that have been positioned in front of me have been unbelievable. I'm working with the NFL now, also doing a lot of player development stuff. So I mean, I've been blessed, and it's just an incredible ride. So if I could tell you anything, I started here also, and the sky has risen for me tremendously. Continue in your education, continue furthering all your opportunities, and believe me, doors, like she said, doors of opportunity will open wide open for you.
Great. Thanks, Guy. Next, we have Maura Lyons. Maura is the former Speaker of the Connecticut House of Representatives, and she is currently the Director of Government Relations for NCC. Maura?
Good morning to everybody. Thank you for being here. I am currently employed and work for President Levinson at Norwalk Community College. In my former life as Speaker, I had a lot of networking with Norwalk Community College. I think here people have a really wonderful opportunity to make a difference in their life. I have found the faculty very engaging, and I'm sure you have. And so I was very pleased to be able to come here after my career in Hartford as the Speaker of the House. There are many things we're doing with the help of President Levinson, and one of those is, since everybody else knows it, is we would like to get a campus in Stamford. We feel that so many of our students come from Stamford. I know it's very difficult for many of you to get here, so that's really a very important objective of President Levinson and the college. My career as a politician, I would underscore that no one, and this is for all of you who don't know what you want to do, because I never knew what I wanted to do. I went to a college, a university, not in Norwalk, not in Stamford, not in Connecticut, somewhere else, but I never knew what I wanted to do when I was there. It was always like, oh, what am I going to be when I grow up? So I didn't follow a path. I had no idea what was going to happen, and the opportunity sort of presented itself to me from friends and people to run for a political office, knowing nothing about politics, knowing nothing about the legislature, never having been to Hartford. I say that because, to the point that you just made, sometimes opportunities present themselves that you would never think of, that you would never even dream that you could do something with them, and it is important to leave yourself open to opportunities. I was elected. I did not like it. The first 2 years, I hated it. I didn't even want to be there. I could never imagine I would achieve a leadership position. But what you learn when you're in either a business, an environment, is how you can program yourself to move forward. I was very shy, I was very reticent, and yet I ended up as Speaker of the House for the state of Connecticut. So there is opportunity for people who, may I use the word, want to dream, want to possibly see other things that are possible in their life, and want to grow in the position that they're in. So I would just tell all of you, underscoring what you said, there are possibilities out there that perhaps you haven't even thought of yet.
Great. Thanks,
That's
Maura.
great. And at the very end here, okay, I'd like to introduce my good friend, James Martin. Okay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, James Martin is a different kind of person. Some people say I was born an entrepreneur, and I don't know if that's necessarily true, but somewhere along the path, I just had a supreme confidence that I can pretty much do anything that I want to do. And I believe my oldest sister is the one who kind of put that in my head. And once I believed that, it was a path that I set out. Whatever it is that I see somebody else is doing, if I'm interested in doing it, I hear every great thing that all the panel members have said, but each one of them I actually really feel in my heart of hearts that if I had the opportunity, I can do it just as well as them. And no offense to them, but it's a way that I grew up, and I've always believed that. And I think when you believe that, you have to go out and reach it and not be afraid of failing. So for me, saying that, I feel confident saying that, and then I also feel confident in attempting it and being okay failing at it. But I had to believe that I can do it in order for me to even try. And so that's who James Martin is. I came to Norwalk Community College. I have 3 kids. My lovely wife is sitting over here, and you know, she's gone to school. She's, you know, had a bachelor's. She was in the middle of a master's. We got married. We had kids. I started very young. I had a sneaker store at 18 years old. I couldn't even sign my own lease. My parents had to sign the lease, and because I wasn't old enough. But I knew the business because the guy I used to work for did the business, and I said, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So I asked him, can I lease the spot from him? And he left and went out of the business, and I continued on. And I was in school, SUNY Old Westbury at the time, and I said, well, why am I in school? I'm actually doing what I want to do, which is working for myself. So I left school and been very successful. 2008, I lost millions of dollars, which was, you know, alarming to say the least, but you know, you got to figure, you have a bunch of people who look up to you and say, wow, this guy's doing great, he's doing great. I have 2 older nephews, and they both told their, you know, their moms, why should I go to school, or why should I continue? They're both in college. Why should I continue? Look how successful Uncle is, and he dropped out. And that hit me real hard, because I said, wow, I know I have a positive influence on him, but at the same time, you know, it can also be a negative. And I have 3 children. So I said, well, I told my wife, you know, I'm going to go back, and because I want to erase that. So all in, actually, Susan Stice, one of the best teachers in the world, by the way. If you haven't had her, make sure you sign up for her. She's sitting right here in the dim yellow shirt. I probably told her this story as well, but I said, I'm going to go back, and so I came back with a mission to go and get the highest GPA I can get in the shortest period of time. So within 20 months, I had to take a winter intercession. So 20 months, I finished here at Norwalk and UConn with a business administration degree here and an economics degree at UConn. And I guess what propelled me to push so hard, I spoke to my counselor at UConn. He said he doesn't believe anybody's ever done that. So, okay, that's a check mark. I'm going to attempt to finish as soon as I can. So I've taken anywhere from 7 to 10 classes each semester while running 3 different businesses and having a family. And my wife will tell you, I hate to say it was easy, but it was easy. It was because I believed I can do it. So it comes from that belief first. And once you put that belief in front of yourself, then you have something to go forward to. And all the doors that have been opened for me throughout the years, I can honestly say, having those degrees, I'm not even soliciting jobs. I have 4 job offers because I have those degrees now that I didn't have before. But I'm, a consummate entrepreneur. Love it, love everything about it. I love the drive, I love the passion. I always say money is the byproduct, and getting the job or the task done is where my heart is. And I'm gonna kind of stop because I probably can talk for 4 hours. And,
well, that makes our job easy, so that's good. That's good.
I have a million questions. It sounds like one of the common denominators, though, that I'm hearing here is that maybe you're the exception, James, but almost no one at the age of 20 knew that they were going to be where they are now, right? Were there particular events or people or circumstances that led you to change your path? How did this happen? How did you get to where you are now?
I can, if you don't mind me speaking about it. So I call it something called the points of light. I heard Tyler Perry speak about it. It's in your journey, wherever you are in your life, you're going to find people that are going to help point you into the direction that you want to go or that you didn't even think about. So for me, I remember I was in, I dropped out of school several times. I was telling you, I was all over the place. So I went to Central Connecticut State University, dropped out, and I had a guy, this as far as the fire department, I had a gentleman come to me and say, hey, they're looking for African-American males in Greenwich, Connecticut to be a firefighter. So I took the test, and I came number 1 on the test, and that's how I got that point of light in job direction. Secondly, I was in doing community theater, here in Norwalk and regional community theater, and someone saw me on stage performing and said, "Hey, why don't you go and audition for The Color Purple on Broadway to Oprah Winfrey?" I was like, I mean, that's not going to happen. Well, that point of light told me to do that, put that suggestion in my ear. I went down to New York, I auditioned, was nervous as hell when I was in there, by the way. Got out of that audition, was walking out the door, and the casting director said, "Excuse me, hold on, wait a minute, I want you to read again." And I read. And so when I got the call from my agent basically saying, unfortunately, they picked someone else for the role for the national tour, I was like, no problem. I didn't want to go nationally anyway. She said, "But congratulations, you're going on Broadway." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So the point I'm saying is that these points of light help guide me and told me basically what to do. Different people who you don't even think are going to help direct you, they will guide you to where you need to be. You just have to listen.
So Guy, it was like the relationships that you were that they were there, but you were open to them.
Absolutely.
Right?
These relationships, like you're speaking about, Amy, these relationships are heavy. Building a network base, because originally when I did the community theater, I just had a network base of the regional area here. But when I stepped outside the box and went to New York and people saw me in different directions, then I began to build this relationship, and opportunities just opened wide open.
Yeah, but you say a key word there for me. See, you were open to opportunities,
oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things we all have to learn here, okay, is that there are opportunities all around us, but you have to keep your mind open and recognize those opportunities and take advantage of them,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing, if any of you have questions in this, or you want to ask anybody, this can be very, very open. So like if somebody's talking about something, you really want to ask more, just raise your hand, okay? Because we really want to make sure that you have the opportunity to get as much from these, pretty impressive people that you can, and be open to the opportunities, as Rob would say.
Right.
So.
Does anybody else have anything else?
No, I just wanted to say that everything starts here. It's cool. You guys have the best faculties here. NCC is one of the best community colleges I've ever seen, or colleges I've ever seen. I've been around. I've traveled around the world, in France, in Europe, and I have friends all around. So, but I will tell you that what I see at NCC, I don't see it anywhere. So take advantage of it. Go talk to your professors. Go talk to the staff here. They will help you. Go talk to the foundation. Get to know them. Because I'm telling you this, when I was at NCC taking classes, from the first semester, I get a scholarship, and I didn't even ask for it. No, because I was somewhere away from NCC, and we were doing fundraising for a group, and afterwards, because we were volunteer, I was a volunteer, with the hospitality department. And I was leading the team. It was about 5 of us. And I was, at the end of the dinner or the function, I was asked to introduce my team. So I got up and I introduced my team. And somebody came up, a very nice lady, Mrs. Libagassel, came over to me and said, "Hey, you know what? I have a scholarship at NCC. I want you to take it." I started talking to her for a while, and she came over to me and she said that. And that's why it is very important. Relationship is very important. And there is something that an equation, return on relationship, ROR. Take care of that, because this can help you. ROR is very important, because anybody you meet, you get to know them, develop a relationship with them, call them and thank them that, just having met them, with them, because you never know. When I was at NCC as a student, I know every faculty here. I know every staff member here. I know every member of the foundation. So I know everybody at NCC. I took advantage of that. And if I needed help, somebody will help me right away. And that's what I tell my students. I share my experiences with one of my students right here. And I spend much of my time in class talking about my experience, my life, and and this is to help you guys, because it's very important. Don't be ashamed. when I was at NCC, I also joined every almost club at NCC. I was on the Student Senate, I was on the African Cultural Club, I was on the Hospitality Club. So when I left NCC, went to Canisius, I was at every club at Canisius. I was on the Student Senate, I was the president of the Hostiers, Society of Hostiers there. And I was at a meeting in New York for the hospitality, and I met one of the dean of Canisius College, and we were talking, we were networking, and next thing you know, I get a letter inviting me to apply for the scholarship. There was 200 students, and guess what? I get the application, I get the scholarship, and I know, when I applied for the scholarship, I never knew that I was gonna get it. It was a full scholarship, so I never paid any dime for college. So, take advantage of that because, it starts from here.
One thing I want to pick up from what TJ's saying, and since I'm in the Career Center, I see a lot of students come in, and, the students I see are the ones who, A, know we're there, and B, are kind of, thinking forward. And I think you have to, all you guys are pretty young, which is great, but I think you have to realize when you're talking to someone or reaching out to them, I don't think you have to feel like you're putting them out or that you're asking them for something. I mean, people like to help young people. And I think for some people here, I think we have a lot of strong personalities here who are, very confident. I think James Martin never suffered from a lack of confidence. But if you're a little shy on that, you got to realize that if someone comes and talks to me, I am thrilled to talk to someone young who's trying to move forward. And I think you're not asking people for anything, you're just trying to learn. You're trying to develop a relationship, and it snowballs. So don't feel like you're putting people out, but do follow up, with a quick email, thank you and stuff, but it's okay. People really love to help young people. I mean, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And, Rob, as you put it, you call it points of light?
Points of light.
Points of light. And for me, now, even though the confidence is there, it wasn't always there, right? It's kind of like stepping stones. Everything, it kind of builds. As you set out to do one task and you achieve it, it builds up confidence. And then you're able to build up the next stage and the next step and the next step. So, and then when you look at points in life, I had a few. I had an uncle. I was maybe 9, 10 years old. He moved from New York to the South, and he had a store, a grocery store. So for me, that was a point in life, because this is my dad's, my mom's brother, and he was a common man. I didn't know that he can open up a store. And that, I believe, is the reason why I had the sneaker store, because I saw him do it, and it really opened up a page of life for me right away. I was totally amazed that he had a store. And, I would go in the store, and I'm young. I was very much into math. I'm like, wait a minute, they're selling that for 50 cents, but they paid 20 cents for it, and I'm counting how much money they're making at 9, 10 years old. And I would, every time because the store was like right next to their house, so they would, be inside the house and see, as soon as they see somebody walk in the yard, they would come out and go, and I would always go with them. And so that was a point in life for me. And then when I circle back and I come to Norwalk Community, as much as I'm able to talk and talk freely, it wasn't until, again, I was in Professor Stites' class, who she made me realize that I was good at public speaking. And I probably had been good at it, for years, but I never paid attention to it. And, to me, it was just talking. And I've always developed the skill of being able to talk to people. Again, having lower confidence being younger, as I got older, what I would do literally is, in a forum like this, I don't have to do it now, but years ago, I would imagine everybody bald-headed. And it gave me, literally, I got over that fear. So while I'm looking at everybody, I would see everybody without hair, and for whatever reason, it made me, sit up and be able to have that confidence and talk to them as regular people and not people just staring down at me. So now it's like you have to kind of wind me down to shut me up. But, those are definitely points of life that you're going to have. And I think everybody's is different. It's going to be friends, family, professors. I can turn this into a Professor Stites, tribute because,
Come on out, Susan.
No, I actually told my wife.
This is my public speaking class.
Okay, well, by far. So coming from here and then going to UConn, and TJ said it earlier, you have some of the best faculty and professors. You know, I'm not here to down UConn, but if I had to pick between the two, where my greater experience was, it was right here at NCC. It was talking to Professor Stites in the middle of trying to do those 20 months where I wasn't as encouraged and wondered if I would be able to, you know, continue. And I remember having a conversation with her, and I left there saying, okay, I can do this. And so it was that little moment. I don't remember which conversation it was because it was plenty, because her door was always open. You can always talk to her, and she was always encouraging. So take advantage of it. It's here, and you have great faculty, great faculty.
And I do have a question for all of you.
Yeah.
You're all successful. Many of you have gone through different careers. Even you, James, in terms of entrepreneurship, have gone through all kinds of stages, right?
Yes.
And now you'd be called in the literature a serial entrepreneur because you have
Pretty much.
started so many different kinds of businesses.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this question. Was it a straight linear line? You never had a failure along the way. Everything was perfect, right?
I wish. I only wish. I don't think you can actually succeed without failure. You know, I think you have to go through it, fail, you know, bump your head, get back up, and it just makes you strong. It's endurance. It creates endurance. And I tell you, my last debacle, when the market fell apart, that one hurt the most. But you know, in my mind, just as much as I lost, I can gain that much and more. And you know, and I believe that. I truly believe that, and it's happening. You know, so you have to fail. And I've had plenty of failures.
How about more
More, I was gonna
in the
say.
legislative arena? I mean, a lot of this is business, but it must be a whole different.
It is, but I think it's also important because you've said that, and thank you very much, that everybody here has been successful and many other accolades. But flash back to, say, when I graduated from college or when I went out to go for a job interview or those situations, it's very nerve-wracking. It's very scary. If you think anybody's walking in there with this great sense of confidence, maybe there's someone like you who does, but certainly it wasn't someone like me, which I think is the norm. And I'll give you a little story of when I was first elected, never having been to Hartford before, not knowing anything about the legislative process. If you've never been there, it's a beautiful, beautiful building, built in about 1888, something like that. A gorgeous building, very steeped in history. And the House of Representatives is this, the chamber itself is this enormous chamber. It rises 5 stories up in the sky. It has these beautiful chandeliers that come down. Everyone sits in a semicircle. There's about 151 of us. And on the first day, there's hundreds of people in the chamber, and the speaker stands above everybody else on this beautiful dais. And I remember walking in, the Republicans sit on one side, the Democrats sit on the other. I walked into the chamber knowing nothing and walked in the wrong door. So I was in the door with all the Republicans, and I'm standing, I must have looked like a little deer with, you know, like this, oh my God. And I stood there and I thought, what do I do? Everybody else seemed to know everything that they were doing. They were all so confident. I knew nothing. I didn't even know where I was going to sit. And I thought, what do I do? Who do I talk to? I don't know anybody in this place. Fortunately, the Sergeant of Arms was kind enough to come over to me, ask me who I was, and took me to my seat. And I recall very vividly looking up at the then speaker who's sitting on the dais. He's going to control everything that goes on, going to make sure what the bills that happen, who's allowed in the chamber, who isn't, thinking, oh my God, that's one position I would never, ever want to hold. I say that because in the time I was there, I didn't go in, unlike you, with a great deal of confidence, with a great deal of assurity. I really didn't. But I learned the process. I learned the issue. I was very good on one particular issue, so I was made chairman. And once I was made chairman, people noticed who I was. They respected me for the knowledge that I had. And to the point of networking, it is true. I made a lot of friends up there and networked, and that really helped me achieve that top position. So though you may be nervous, you may be unsure, like I was, it doesn't mean you're not going to get where you're going to be. You can learn it, you can do it, you can talk to people, and you can get to the position that you want. It takes hard work, but you can get there.
What about you, Lorraine? You had so many different things, a number of kids along the way to complicate life a little bit, right? How did you pull all this off? flawlessly, right?
Yeah, right. I'm going through, I'm not going to call it, a mistake, but I'm going through a challenge right now that I'm a bit overwhelmed in my responsibilities, and I need to find more balance in my life, because as a mom and taking on a new franchise and managing my husband's financial affairs, it's a bit much. And I have to go through a very sharp learning curve. Hard work has always served me well my entire life. Education was not really stressed when I was growing up, but I did go to college right out of high school. And nothing spoke to me. It was not speaking to me at that point, and I had my point of light where a friend of the family said, why doesn't she apply at American Airlines? So I became a flight attendant, and I took that opportunity to travel and to learn more about who I was and also maybe where I wanted to go. And at that time, I happened to notice that the Wall Street professionals who were on the plane were very dynamic. They were very exciting. They were a lot of fun, very witty. Said, gee, let me try that avenue. So as a flight attendant in New York City, I started temping. I started temping at Wall Street firms, and I was hired because I was dependable, I worked hard. Making mistakes is okay. Never be afraid to ask for help, because as I think you were saying, Amy, people want to help you. And if you ask for help, it means that you're willing to learn. Working hard my whole life, and no matter what I did, has helped tremendously, and I don't think there's anybody who's sitting up here who says everything just came to them easily, other than maybe James and his education. Which, I was here and I loved being here, but there were times it was really hard. My cat got run over by a car in the morning, and I had a test, and I had to manage. Sometimes, you all know, there's bumps that can happen. Pushing through, being responsible, and being dedicated will help you get to your goals. I can't stress that enough. When I look for an employee, I'm looking for somebody who's responsible, who's not afraid to ask a question, and someone I can rely on. You make a mistake, it's not a big deal. It's a learning curve. You learn. But working hard is something that in my life I have found a lot of success just in having excellent work ethic. Being a flight attendant helped open my eyes up. I started out on Wall Street in this, they call it the back office. It's a horrible place to be with no windows, and the phones never stop ringing, and the salesmen and the traders are yelling at you, but you work hard. I worked up to the trading floor, and I had a lot of respect, and it was a great position, and I really enjoyed it. And time came, I became a mom, and my first child was born with a disability. I left that great job to be a mom, and then I had subsequently more children. So I was a mom for a long time, and
You still are.
I'm still a mom. 2 of my kids are in Bryan McMahon, and I am hoping they come here because I had such a great experience here, and they'll have a lot more opportunities open to them, I think, than I did as a student coming out of high school. But I still want them to come here. This was a great foundation, and I don't know if everybody realizes, I think you're hearing it, how much support is here and what a great connection you have with professors or opportunities here. But I certainly hope you appreciate your time here because you've got the ability to maximize your education here at this institution.
I'd like to pick up on a point that Lorraine is saying, and I think, especially when you're young, but I think in life in general, it's kind of, you want to have this sense of urgency, that you want to have this kind of energy to learn and to move forward and, kind of to capitalize and take advantage of your time here. And I think I'm hearing a lot from people here about that. And sometimes it's daunting, I think, especially when you're starting in school. It's like the schoolwork is so difficult. It's much different than high school. You can feel like I'm not going to get through it. But if you have that sense of urgency and the hard work that I'm hearing from everybody. The hard work, in some ways it can seem off-putting, but man, it feels good when you work hard and it turns it around. There's nobody out there successful. I don't care if they're the best athlete in the world. They didn't get there just because they showed up. They got there because they...
And I want to piggyback that as well. I mean, the school for me came easy because of the 25 years that I was absent from the classroom. I went to school for things that I had already done. And so time-wise, I developed hard work throughout the years. I sleep 4 to 5 hours a night now because of that. So I had 16-hour work days for years, and I'm saying 7 days a week for years before I would have a day off. But when you go through it, and even finishing school, it was like, so yes, it's a lot of hard work. You have to put it in, but when you finish, the relief feels so good, and you know that you accomplished something you want. And the same thing, whatever business I started, you're gonna have to put in the hard work, and it shouldn't be daunting. You shouldn't be afraid of it. I'm saying tackle it with confidence, because you have to know that you're gonna fail at some of these things, and that's where the success comes from. I don't think you have succeeded until you fail. I have to really press on that issue, because that's the only way that I've seen it.
Well, you don't have to crash and burn on a failure, right? I mean, there's the little failures and big failures. It can be all over the place.
But that's what failures are.
Yeah.
They're little strides and that bump, and then you just pick your head up and you go again.
And you can learn from those failures, that's the point,
You
right?
always learn from
the
it.
failures,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I don't think you can come back from it unless you learn from it.
I want to just say, to me, it's about deleting all of the obstacles. You know, delete button on your computer. Delete the obstacles and create your possibilities. If you delete the negativity that's going to come your way, there's going to be greatness next to you. There's going to be greatness that comes to you. Let me just give you somewhat of an example. So, I was at the fire department. And I was also at NCC, but I was also raising my children by myself while my wife went to medical school at Georgetown. You're talking about hard work. I never understood the value of what women have gone through in raising children. I'm serious, that's a whole nother game, you know what I mean? That right there, I give all due respect to women because of raising the children. And the value that my wife and I saw with this is that hard work, and which we've taught, we've taught our children, is the expectation that we have for you. And I expect all of you sitting in here, and you're not my children, you gotta work hard at what you want. You gotta work hard at what you wanna do. No one is gonna give you anything. They're not gonna give it to you. If a man told me, a homeless man told me years ago when I was at the YMCA, if you don't go get it, it's not gonna come to you. You have to go get what it is that you want. So let me just give you an example. With my children, I have a son that plays in the NFL right now. He's a linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Right now, you know what I mean? Hard work. I have a son that's a professional MMA fighter. Right now, he graduated from University of Florida. He's on television fighting, breaking bones and all this other type of stuff. But that's, yeah, exactly. My daughter's at the University of Delaware, but it's about hard work that we taught them at a young age. And my wife now, I mean, we've owned our own medical practice for 10 years. Hard work, hard work. No one is giving you anything. Go get it.
But it feels good.
Oh, yeah.
I think you gotta realize that, my dad was a teacher for years, and he always said, it's not all fun. Not all learning is fun. So you gotta get through it. But man, you just feel good about yourself, and you're doing it for you.
It's very rewarding at the end.
You're doing it for you. So.
No question. Do all of you hire people?
Yes.
Now, just give me one of the key questions that you would ask someone before, they're sitting down, they're asking for a job. What might be a question that you would ask them?
One of the first things I ask, I go over the resume and I ask them to tell me about themselves outside of what's on paper.
Outside of what's on paper?
Outside of what's on paper. Can they tell me about themselves convincingly enough for me to hire them? And that's what I look for. And depending on that, what they say, and not so much how they say it, but depending on what the meat and potatoes are in that conversation, can they sell themselves? And so it's almost like, they have to, it's almost an elevator pitch at that one moment for me.
I like that term, elevator pitch. I'm glad you said it.
James, are you looking for them to put forward just their academic professional stuff? Or are you trying to get a sense for their interests or?
Sense of the academic and professional, that's there. I knew that before I called them in. So I want to know the person a little bit in this 15, 20-minute time. There's not much that you can learn from this person. So I usually try to get as much as I can in that moment.
Maura?
This young man has a question.
Yeah, following up.
Wait, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
What about the images outside of the questions you asked them? For example, posting bad things online. Well, do you guys check that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, let me make sure we get this on camera. This is a really important point.
Yes.
You said, what about?
Things you post on social media, does it reflect on how you get the job?
What are the things that you post on social media? Do you look for things like that before you hire a candidate?
I don't even talk to anybody or look at their resume before my assistant pulls up their whole online history. And anything negative, see, when you come in before online profiles were created, I had to accept you for who you are, for what you showed me. But usually that's not all the time who the person is. So now I get a peek into your life for who you really are, not only the person that you're trying to show me. So she would show me profiles, and depending on, what's in the profile, I will pick and choose who I would actually want to sit down with. And I always tell people, I tell my nieces and nephews, you are, your future employer, you are who you hang out with. So those pictures, those profiles, I've seen, pictures that I can't believe they would leave it on their profile and then actually, submit a resume. You might as well throw it in the garbage at that point. Because now I've seen you drunk, I've seen you in your worst moment online, and people say, well, that's my personal profile. No, you've made it public. Now it's everybody's profile to look at and pick and choose, who they want to work with.
Well, yeah, I respect that, but also it's that's a mistake what you guys make when you are growing up. So that's the way I see it too. I say, oh, you make a mistake by doing this. Are you willing to commit to do, to change? And if you do that, if you promise me that you're gonna change, I will hire you. Because everything is about here, your heart, positive attitude. If you come up with a positive attitude, growing up, we make a lot of mistakes. But if you are really, committed to change, that's where it comes from.
Maura?
I disagree a little bit. And it somewhat depends on the job, perhaps, that you're looking for. But I agree with you. Employers look at everything that's on the social media. And if you have done something, who knows, okay, you post something where you went to a party and all that. If you're going for a job interview, you better delete that. Get rid of it all. There's no reason to put it on there. I know an individual who had a wonderful resume, 2 master's degrees, totally perfect for the job. Another person, obviously it's competitive when you get a job. Foolishly, this gentleman who was in his late 20s left this stuff on, and the guy afterward told him they would have hired him in a minute. That's why they didn't hire him, and they hired the other person. So get rid of it when you go out. Absolutely. I don't care what job you're going for. There's no reason to put it on there when the employers today have the ability to do that and follow you and recognizing somewhat, maybe wrong, maybe right, but the value of you is going to be somewhat looked at in that form.
Well, it does show judgment. I mean, doesn't it? I mean, to some extent, as an employer, this was showing poor judgment. They have pictures and other things like that. And
that's what I was going to say. It's not so much, yes, I believe the heart and you have the right to change, but you're on the job market and you left it there.
Yeah.
That shows poor judgment, and I don't know if I can accept that for you to work for me, because then you would make poor judgment, because to me that's a big time flaw.
Precisely. Lorraine, what about you?
I absolutely use a tip that Professor Stiles had given me, or given our class, which is I ask them what they know about us.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Exactly.
Because it shows, your intent. Have you done your homework, or you just like you saw the posting and you just put in your name? And I want to see what your interest level is. I want to see how committed you're going to be to our business. It's a family business, it's a growing business, but I want to see, that level of commitment even at that point. And it's an online community. It doesn't take much time to Google. Do a Google, figure out what they, see if they've been in the paper, see what's going on. Be prepared when you go in the interview that way. It really shows goodwill as to, I'm invested in this company, I'm invested in this job. I already, before coming in, am showing interest.
One of the things when, you guys tell me if I'm giving the right advice here, when people come in the Career Center and, they're getting ready for a job, we of course go over this, but I will say to people, you know what, and this is what I would do. Write down some questions that, you have about the company, and also write down some points for yourself of things you want to get across. And I've gone into meetings with people and for things I've been pursuing, and I've had the discussion and chatted. But at the end, I've just said, I just want to take a second. I want to look and see some things I want to make sure I covered. So I would make a point of, if I want to reinforce something that we didn't get to, because a conversation can kind of zig and zag, and so that way you can kind of take control and try to really put forth the qualities that you have that make you well suited for the job. And I don't know, would you guys agree that if someone kind of came in with some, they're obviously not looking at their notes, but at the end, if you look down and said, I just want to make sure I covered that, would that reflect well on the person from your end?
Yeah, I think, like for instance, I was in a meeting yesterday with presidents of organizations, John Skipper from ESPN, David Levy from Turner, and the main thing that they said that they want, first and foremost, LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys are on LinkedIn, but it is a tool that you can use with over 3 million people are on it, and it's great for alumni opportunities. It's great for networking, but you can't merge your LinkedIn opportunities with your Facebook opportunities. That, like James says, that is your resume is on paper, but when you do LinkedIn, it's outside of what and who you are. It's outside of what it says on this paper. Let me see what this guy or this young lady is really about. Let me see who they are, what they are. When I was in this meeting last night, they basically said, you need to come in prepared asking questions. We want to know if you know who we are, the culture of our organization, what we're about. So I would tell you to look at it from that perspective. Don't just go in and sit down and listen to what you're interviewing them, regardless of how high they are, as far as president, non-president, or whatever the case may be. Interview them. I think that is more impressive than them just asking you questions.
And when you start off with the question, that's another thing that I always tell them at the beginning, that we're here interviewing each other. For one, it makes them feel comfortable, and at the same time, I want them to ask me questions to see, how they perform, for one, and they need to know what it is that this company does. And I think without that, it's hard for me to select them as a candidate.
I will add also on that, know, for example, who are interviewing you first. You try to ask the question, call and ask them, know their names. It's good. And most of the time, all the, interviews, you can go and Google them. Google their names, know what they do. It's very important when you are interviewing to say, Mr. Smith, by the way, and that person is going to be connecting with you. And you did your job, you did your homework to know their name. And that's very important. And we are this comes around relationship. Knowing the names is very important. When you meet somebody, take the time to learn them, to know them, learn their names. It will help you.
Again, if anyone has questions, sure.
Going back to looking for a job, how persistent should you be with getting a job? Because sometimes when you send in resumes and stuff like that, employers never call you back. And I've heard that if you go after the employer, call the person many times, you'll have a better chance of getting the job. Is that true?
Okay, the question is, how persistent should you be when you're trying to pursue a job? If you put a resume in and you haven't heard back, should you keep trying to reach out and connect and just be persistent? Was that the question? So how do you all receive that? Because, I guess your assumption is your resume is going in blind without you making a connection somewhere.
But I don't know if I'm being,
annoying, right?
I think that's a 50-50. Depends on the employer, because I might like it, but somebody else might think you're a pest. You understand? I might look at persistence overcomes resistance. And so I'm like, there's something about this kid I want to find out, but then you might have somebody else. So when we talk about social network, I know it has its downside. You can't really put what you would like to put on it, but it has its upside. Because if you look up information on anybody that you can find out if they love the Yankees, the Knicks, and now you have a conversation. You have a conversation piece. So when you go into that interview, you should have a bunch of information that you can actually add to your interview, because it is all about relationships. If I didn't have a relationship with Professor Stites, I wouldn't have met Rob Chernow, and I wouldn't be here now. And if I wouldn't be here now, I wouldn't have been selected for the Greenwich Audubon board membership. You understand? So everything circles back because of relationships. And because of the Audubon Greenwich, now I'm getting offers for other things, but it all started, and I can, again, tribute to Susan Stites, because those things happen. So relationships are important, but you need to know who this person is, what are their interests, because you're going to sound different in the interview. If you talk to me about the New York Knicks, we have more to talk about than the person that just came in, because I love the New York Knicks.
Yeah, one of the tricks that I used to pull off with the students that I've coached before is if you have no better time in your life than when you're a student. All of us feel sorry for you at this point,
exactly.
Right? Really, seriously.
And envious.
And envious to some extent.
Yeah.
You can sometimes just write to people and even say, even if you're don't quite mean it, I'm not interested in a job, but I hear that you could help me in my career. I want to learn something from you. I promise I won't take up any more than 10 minutes of your time. Could I schedule an appointment? Two things always come out of that in my experience.
So it matters how you.
Well, for one, it's hard for people like me, as a young college student, say, well, you spend 10 minutes of your time with me. I'm not trying to get a job, so you've taken some pressure away from me, right? That I don't have to hire you. And once you're there, I may say, wow, this is a pretty good kid. I like this kid. Maybe I will hire him. But I will always do the following. I don't have anything, but here are some other people who might. Okay? So there are some tricks. I know someone else. I'll give you one other one. This is an outlier. Doesn't happen very often. A woman was trying to get a job in the Silicon Valley, some very competitive companies, and she bought a bunch of lottery tickets and attached it to her resume and said, I think my chances of me being interviewed are about the same chances of you winning this this lottery. Okay, but it can close the lottery ticket. They thought that was clever enough that she got a bunch of interviews and ultimately got a job out of that. So you can be creative and entrepreneurial in all kinds of ways in a very difficult job market.
And you know what? What's the downside? You throw it out
exactly.
there, right? You throw it out there. And so if you reach out to someone because you have some tenuous connection somewhere and they don't get back to you, okay. So,
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, as they say, right?
But, and I would tell you, we'll try to do that. Like if somebody comes in, one student came in and he's done everything right, just trying to get a connection at, one company. And so I just, in all the connections I have, I kept thinking, who knows somebody? And I just shot an email to people I knew, just friends. I said, hey, really nice kid. Do you have a connection? And guess what? We got him a 2 removed connection. Now, I don't know if he's going to get the job, but he at least got in front of somebody. And it's, again, the idea that if you're a good kid, okay, and I say kid in the positive way, and you're trying to do the right thing, and you're learning along this, we're all happy to help you. And like Rob said, he'll say, oh, I can't do it, but this friend of mine, and then you follow up. Now, when that happens, it's incumbent upon you guys to be responsive and professional. Like if someone's going to put themselves out for you, you can't get around to it 2 weeks later. You got to be on it, and you got to respect people's time.
And you got to send them thank you notes for spending time with you too.
It could just be an email. It doesn't have to be snazzy. So.
Looking back, if there was one thing that you know now that you wish you had known 10, 15, or 20 years ago, what would that one thing be that you could advise our students?
Easy. Stay in college. When I left college the first time.
Stay in college.
Stay in college, finish my degree. Even though I left for business, I honestly believe all that I lost, I wouldn't have lost had I studied economics prior. It's an easy one for me.
I think the value is, which I never learned when I was in college, is networking. I can't say enough about the importance of networking. Even your other student friends, who knows, they could end up in a company that you'd like to be in. And to keep up with, especially now with all the social media, to keep up with them, to realize if, say, you met anybody on this panel that, okay, now I could call them because I went up and said, hello, my name is whatever, and you could call them and maybe they can help you. It is so important to keep up those efforts that you've made, even if it's a moment in time that you just met them at a reception, whatever. Make sure they hear your name. Hello, I'm Moira Lyons. I'm with, or I'm a graduate or whatever, looking for a job. I never learned that. I can't tell you how many years later I realized its value, and it held me in very good stead. I did a lot because of that. So remember who your folks are, the people that you're meeting now, your teachers, the faculty. You can call them 10 years from now, and they'll be able to help you. So it's really critical to the world you live in today.
How about you, Guy?
I would say define your value. Define your value, who you are, what you are, where you want to go. And then once you establish that, redefine your value. Just continue to define how valuable you are to the situation you're trying to get in and what you can bring to the table.
We said we weren't going to do this go down the road, but we're going to. Lorraine?
For me, definitely, I would say make sure you take care of yourself, because it's really easy to get lost in taking care of your spouse, your kids, your house, your business. You know, I ended up on the bottom, and it's not a good place to be, and I was there for a long time. And coming back to school, getting an education, getting some confidence to move forward was really vital for me in where I am right now. It's easy to put yourself last when there's so many other things that seem to be pressing, but you've got to take care of yourself. You know, on the plane, it's like you put the oxygen mask on yourself first, then you help your kid. It's true. If you put your kid first, you're gone. You know, you've got to take care of yourself. And for the women here especially, it's hard being a mom and taking time for yourself, but you've got to do it.
Definitely finish school. You know, first, when you're in school, stick to it, finish, get your degrees because, you know, I made a mistake of quitting school. You know, I was, for example, to take a job. Then afterwards, I went back to school. That's why I came back to NCC. But, you know, I was also playing basketball. I was the team captain of my school, college. And, you know, my friends, you know, I quit playing basketball. And the friends I play with became professional players in Europe. So, and, you know, so that's, again, I took some risk, but, you know, but I enjoy those risks. You know, you will be called to take some risk. Take the risk, engage yourself.
Well, I'm just going to throw out one last thing, if anybody wants to. Do we have a question? I'm sorry. Yeah.
How do you guys, I mean, we're talking about the secrets to success. How do you guys see it changing in the next 4 or 10 years? When we're coming up, how will it be harder to do the things that you guys did, or just how will it be different for us when we're finished with school?
Okay, I'm just going to repeat the question for you. So the question was,
Great question, by the way. Great question.
We're talking about secrets to success, and the question is, how do you see the world changing or things changing? So, you know, 4 or 10 years out, that things may be different, and what you would need for success at that point. Where do you think it's going?
I think technology is obviously a heavy area to focus in on, and I think globalization is huge. Give you an example. So I met a guy by the name of Steve Richards the other day, and Steve is the head of NBA China, right? I'm not really into the NBA, I'm into the NFL. So I asked Steve, hey Steve, is there anyone that I can speak to in China dealing with the NFL? Do they have NFL in football in China? He said, yeah, there's a gentleman by the name of Richard Young. So LinkedIn. I'm telling you now, LinkedIn. I linked in to Richard Young and said, hey, Steve Richard told me that, can I speak with you regarding NFL China? This guy's been living over there for 10 years, born and raised right here. He's the director of NFL China. So I say all that to say that, yes, you guys need to really get into technology, the LinkedIn process. You need to get into the globalization process, dealing with, because things now, I mean, soccer right now is huge, and it's all over. In London, you know, Spain and so forth. So I would think heavy globalization is good for you guys.
Picking up on, you notice the one thing he said, and he prefaced it with, I called my friend.
Yeah.
So with technology advancing, and there's
Perfect.
pluses and there are minuses to it, but to get to the technology, he first had to network and call his friend. The technology today is wonderful. The world is open to all of you in terms of that. It also makes it difficult because right now employers, I think one of you asked that, they look, all the resumes are online. So you don't get like it used to be in the good old days when I was there, you actually get to talk to a person. No, they don't do that anymore. All the resumes are online, and you have to have the right word, because the computer spits it out. They don't look at it personally. They don't look at your resume or whatever it is personally. The computer spits out what they think the catchwords are that would be the right word for their company. So if you don't have those right catchwords that reflect, to your point of, researching the company to know what you're saying when you give in your resume or you give in the letter, it's going to be spit out. So you have to research what you're doing now. That's the technology that is currently facing us to put in, because, with jobs today, with everybody looking, there's probably hundreds and hundreds of people looking for the same job. And companion that with what was saying before, if you're going there, look through all your maybe your neighbor knows somebody, or maybe you belong to an environmental club that this company happens to use or utilize. So I see wonderful aspects to technology. I also see us becoming much less personal as it advances in the world that you guys are all entering.
Just to get back to the questions is, and this is, I talk about this in my class all the time. Think about the future. Think about your industry, the industry where you are now, especially people who are in the hospitality business. Think about the habit of people 10 years from now on, 5 years from now on, and try to position yourself in it. Try to be one of the inventors of what we're going to be doing in the future. And if you do that, you'll be very successful, because a lot of people are thinking about that now.
I'm going to put in one plug before we end here, because I think we've touched on this throughout the entire panel, okay? I think people need to begin to think more entrepreneurially. They need to develop a mindset that entrepreneurs possess. We've touched upon that in a million different ways here. It can be recognizing opportunities. It can be extremely adaptable, as all of you have been as you've moved from one situation to another. You talked about taking risks. Networking is absolutely essential to that. James also talked about the importance of communication and getting all your ideas across. And we've touched on failure, for example, and the importance. All those are characteristics of successful entrepreneurs.
Yeah, whether they're their own business people
exactly.
or working within an organization, kind of you're all going to be in charge of your own success. So
everybody is slimming down. Everybody is slimming down, trying to save money, trying to save costs. They're looking for those people who think, like I just described, okay, having that mindset and those actions that entrepreneurs will take. Whether you start, like Amy says, your own business, or whether you work for someone else, okay? I do have a couple more questions here.
I'm an older student returning to school. I've had a couple of different career paths that I've become bored with, and I don't want to do it anymore, and I've had this opportunity to come back. What do you think, how do you look at the job market for older students? I mean, say 50-plus students. Do you think that as an older student, people will take you seriously in the coming job market if you're starting out from the beginning? And if so, how, if not, maybe how you could position yourself differently, how you could make yourself more attractive to the job market?
All right.
As an older person.
The question was, with the job market, if you're coming back into the job market as an older student, 50 plus, possibly changing careers, what are the challenges of trying to land something, right? And any advice people would have?
Well, I would, people don't always put the year they graduated anymore. And, if you look online, different career sites that would tell you, if that's your concern, you kind of leave it out. When somebody sits with you, they're going to assume that you have gone before anyway, unless it comes up in conversation. Of course, you tell them. But it's not, that's not a big factor to me. Sometimes some employers rather somebody old. They may not say it because they look at, responsibility. They're not going to get up and leave. They have a house, they have a mortgage, as opposed to someone younger. Another employer may say they want somebody younger because they're not going to want as much, income. So, I think you just put your best foot forward, put it out there, and, see what you get back.
Yeah, and following up when you said, it's selling the skills that you have. What other job you had before, you have to take those same skills, whether, I don't know what it was, whether you were able to negotiate, whether you had good management skills, people skills, emphasizing that versus, here are the different jobs, because they want to know the essence of who you are. So you should be selling your skills, not the fact of that you had different jobs and now you're changing the career path. The career path may change, but the essence of who you are and your skill pattern won't change, and that's what you should sell.
And I would add to that, Guy talked about globalization, right? And so things are moving faster, and as they move faster, that means less time for training, right? So you can build your resume to show that you're a self-starter, that you don't need all that training. And those are keywords that I would pick up, especially if I have a fast-paced business.
I think age discrimination is heavy out there.
Yep.
I think what you need to do in situations like that, because I too was there, I like giving examples. So I went to NBC Sports and I sent my resume in, and I wanted to come in as an intern. So they looked at me and said, well, we looked at your resume, but it's just entirely overwhelming. You don't fit. I said, I just need to get in. I get in, I'll be all right to get to my next level. It said, no, but we want you to reapply for the fall internship situation. But with my skill set, they wanted me to, they wanted to see some of I was just totally too qualified as an intern, you know what I'm saying? I can't come in, those guys getting the coffee, so I have management skill set, so they wanted to put me in a position where I can use that skill set of management and be able to, work from that area. So it's tough, but you can get it done.
Thank you. Then what about the completely opposite, somebody who doesn't have a large resume, somebody who, hasn't, just started off?
Okay, yeah. So the question is, how about somebody on the other extreme who doesn't have, they're younger, they don't have a long resume. Any advice on that?
Again, that first of all, whatever type of job you're going for, you shouldn't have just one resume, right? If you're going into the real estate industry or sales or whatever it is, your resume should be built upon that particular industry job. So if you have skill sets that don't fit that, when you put in a resume, it's supposed to be for that particular job. You can leave things off your resume that are unnecessary for that position. So in your position, okay, talk about your GPA, talk about the things that you have done, your career center, community activities, things that you've done that can build up your resume, as opposed to somebody else that may want to build down their resume. Like if I did a resume now, it would be like 6 pages. Nobody's going to look at a resume over 2 pages, right? So I would have to condense that anyway. And it would have to be, according to the particular job that I'm looking for. If it's sales, I'm going to bring all my sales history into that particular resume for that type of job.
One thing I would say in your position, you need to think about the things you've done, and sometimes you don't critically think about what you've really learned in that. Like when people come talk to us, like, some people are working in a retail store, okay? They don't realize that there are some real skills that they've developed. And so we can kind of help you think through what you did, but also take advantage of this place. Get involved in things, develop your capital, develop what you know. And I think you can probably, as James said, you want to put yourself forward in a certain way for a certain job, but there's probably things you've done that so many times students will come in and I have to pull it out of them. They're like, oh yeah, I did do that. And there's probably more that you've done that you may not be highlighting.
Do you know what an informational interview is? So,
yeah.
So with an informational interview, instead of going and asking for a job, you can pose the question to LinkedIn. You can pose, I'm a LinkedIn guy, as you guys can tell, right? But you can pose the question on LinkedIn, hey, I'd like to know how you maneuvered to get to where you are. You're asking these questions, building a relationship, but you're asking these questions so that you can, in long term, ask, hey, is there anyone that you can, set me up with in the future? So informational interview basically is a way that you can communicate with this person who's an NCC alum. Let's say you go on and look at NCC alums. Hey, my name is such and such. I'd like to know what was your journey and how'd you get there? What were the challenges that you faced? And they'll respond back to you. Oh, because people love talking about themselves. You know what I mean? So I'm being very honest. So if you can pose the question to them where they begin to talk about who they are, and they can give you information on how to get through your journey, that's more so an informational interview.
One more question, then we're going to wrap this up so people can talk one-on-one with people. Yeah.
How can I build a network beyond my environment? I mean, in the sense, if I wanna, for example, if I mail you, what could I say to make you spend your day answering me?
Like I just said, you get online and you say for instance, you email me. You said, hey, what's your name?
Rafael.
Rafael. He says, hey, Mr. Ford, how you doing? This is Rafael. I just like to know. I'm looking at your job description, not job description, I'm looking at your opportunities. How did you get to this? How did you get to your journey? I'd like to know, what were the challenges that you faced in getting to where you are, and how could you, and then I'll respond back to you, hey, Rafael, this is what's happening. Hey, why don't you give me a call? Once you get that call, it is now your time to sell yourself to them. And now you're building a relationship. So to me, that's the way that you create. That's how I did with NFL China. I was able to talk with Richard Young just by asking these questions. Hey, man, how'd you get there, man? And what was going on? And then next thing you know, he's like, hey, give me a call. We need to talk about this NFL China thing next week.
I think you want some.
I just wanted to ask, how many people here are involved with the National Leadership Society? This is a tremendous resource at NCC, and you will be put in touch with motivational speakers. I don't know how far you're through the process, but it cemented the skill, or the habit rather, of goal setting for me, and what a difference that makes. And having that on your resume when you were talking about how do I stand out as a new student, having something like that on your resume, a talking point for your interviewer. Well, what is National Leadership Society? What did you get out of that? I would encourage everybody to look into that here at NCC because, again, when I say take advantage of what's here, it's a tremendous resource for you.
Ann?
I was going to say, to your point, another quick thing would be, have you gotten a scholarship at NCC? I'm the executive director of the foundation. As I was in the hiring process before, and I looked at kids coming out of college, I said, wow, if their school gave them a scholarship, I'm going to take a second look because the school's already done a screen to show that that student's motivated, involved, and has met all sorts of criteria. So that's another buzzword that if you have that in your resume, it's going to really make an impact when somebody from the outside is looking at your resume.
Yeah, Ann Rogers just mentioned that if you got a scholarship, make sure to include that because it's a screening mechanism to begin with. There's a funny story about that. I knew a very, very major Fortune 500 company who would look for all students who had gotten into Wharton or into Harvard Business School or whatever and go after them with a vengeance, right? And say, we'll give you all the training that you'd ever get at Wharton or Harvard, but we're going to do it on our, it's not going to cost you a dime. But what they did is they used Harvard and Wharton as their screening mechanism in that particular case. But
get to their 11:30 classes. Okay.
Yes, so we really need to end here. You're right. Well, you're going to buy everybody lunch here anyways, right? I thought. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I really want to thank all the panelists for joining us and everyone.
Yeah, thank you.